Well, I do believe this is going up. I think so. I got a one there and a little icon. There's another one with thumbs up. So I guess it's okay to get started. So I'll go ahead and do that. Having a few internet problems here, both Wi-Fi, which I'm not on, and also the local telephone connection internet. So I don't know how much we'll be able to get into this. I do have my glasses here, so I didn't set up my laptop to look at the chat. I'll probably have to look at it here, but I'm not planning on being here that long. I just wanted to cover a few things. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Yes, we're going to talk about this, the dereliction of Congress. Frankly, it's a conspiracy to help illegal things occur. And we're going to talk about the duty of the states in response to Congress not doing its job and the overextension of the executive branch, et cetera, et cetera. So I have this. Of course, you might recognize it. It's an old InfoWars shirt on the Second Amendment. I think I bought this from InfoWars probably back in, I don't know, probably 2013, 14, somewhere in there. And of course, you probably will recognize my Second Amendment cup. I thought I should use this tonight to talk about the Second Amendment. And I'm having a little bit of root beer. So no alcohol. I'm not going to be doing that for a while. I've got too many other things I gotta do, even work late at night. Okay, well, let's get on into it. For those of you who are following the news, and I don't mean the mainstream news, which is nothing more than gaslighting, gobbledygook, lies, and distortions, you'll notice that there are a couple of things that are going on. You'll remember that the illustrious President Trump had the ATF ban the bump stocks. You'll remember that, which was not in his power to do, nor the ATF's under the circumstances. That's being challenged now, and it looks like, I don't know, that they're going to rule on behalf of us. I'm talking about the Supreme Court, but they're apparently looking at that and the situation with the pistol braces or the pistol braces that the ATF just came out and said they're banned now and made something like, I don't know how many millions of Americans instant felons. And I said it's not an ex post facto law in actuality, but it's so dang close to an ex post facto law that it really needs, the ATF needs to be reined in and frankly disbanded along with the FBI and a lot of other stuff, as you all know how I feel. Again, here we are. The intelligence community, that includes a lot of the DOJ, including the ATF, all those people. Intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy. They keep coming after us. As I said, as they keep losing their grip on the world, they're going to turn their weapons in more and more on us because they're psychopaths and sociopaths, and they have to control people. They have to be in control and tell you how to live your life. And every time there's a criminal out there, it won't be too long before, if a criminal uses a car, I mean, they're not doing that now. We use that as an argument. Oh, a criminal uses a car, ban all weapons, right? That's how they look at it, rather than going after the criminal, releasing him, all that stuff. Well, eventually what they're going to get down to is criminalizing anything that you do. So if there's a criminal that uses a car, they're not going to say you can't have cars, but they're working on that through another avenue of approach anyway. The whole thing is a lie. It's all twisted. The best thing to do is everybody be armed, because in an armed society, everybody is a polite person. But they don't want to consider that because it gives you too much freedom. And you all know all the arguments, so I'm not going to go into that. Let me wet my whistle here. Okay. So the Supreme Court's either in the process of or will soon be addressing both the bump stock situation and the pistol brace situation. The pistol brace whole deal is actually nothing more than a scapegoat and just another lever that the ATF and the federal government's trying to put in there because it's incrementalism. Of course, they say you can't have this, and then they say you can't have that, and then you can't have the next thing, and it just goes on and on and on. So some suits were brought against the ATF on those two things, and apparently the Supreme Court's going to view it. How are they going to rule? Well, they should throw the ATF out on its ear. That's what they should do. In the description box below, because I'm not going to get into all the legal arguments. You all can look at that if you have interest. I'm just giving you kind of like a 60,000 foot view of this. In the description box below is our Judge Andrew Napolitano explaining this situation I'm talking about with the ATF and the Second Amendment. Okay, so it's about, I think, a 5 or 10 minute video. You'll want to go look at it if you haven't seen it. He explains the circumstances, and it kind of explains more of what I'm going to talk about here about the dereliction of Congress here in a few minutes. Okay, all right. So then, of course, we know that Washington State, that those crazy ass people up there on the west side of Washington State have banned what they call assault weapons, and that's not what they are, but you know, they put them all in there, especially this AR-15 business, limit magazines and all that. That is now being challenged in a lawsuit as well. That all might be preempted by the Supreme Court. Now, probably not in the brace situation and the bump stock thing, because when the Supreme Court rules on something, it's usually very narrow and specific. So we might not see, at least initially, any decisions by the Supreme Court, if they're positive for us, and they should be, have any effect on the Washington thing yet, but eventually it will. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. That piece of information there. So Judge Andrew Napolitano discusses some of the legal aspects of that in that little video, and I think you'll find it of interest. Now, how does this all rope around my title here of the Dereliction of Congress? Judge Napolitano will talk about an act, and I forget the name of it right now, but basically what it is that, well, let me give you some background. First of all, the Congress became very lazy, okay? It was getting all of these people wanting all these laws to be written, all these bills submitted, and Congress can't do it all. And that is the way it's supposed to be. Now, legal man will say, Roy, you know the Constitution is really not what it's trumped up to be. Double entendre there, yeah. Legal man, I understand that. But I think you'll agree with me that what the initial purpose of having Congress decide all the laws, you know, have the bills and all that, was that the debate in Congress would, in fact, slow down the implementation of bills and laws. That was part of the idea, that it would be an adversarial, conflicting debate, so that the Congress, both the Senate and the House I'm talking about, okay, the combined houses of Congress, would not be able to do what they have now commissioned these three-letter agencies to do in their behalf. So there's this act that was put into place. I think Judge Napolitano said it was put into place sometime in the 60s, but it may have been a different time. You can go back and listen. But this particular act made it so that these three-letter agencies, or whatever, that the executive branch puts together and the Congress, you know, permits, even though it's outside the Constitution, with this act provided so that the regulatory commissions could basically write law, and that the only time it would be rescinded would be if Congress acted, and I think Judge Napolitano said within 30 days of the bill being signed into law. It had to be, Congress had to act on it within 30 days to rein it in some way. Well, Congress never does that, because what they didn't want to do, they don't want to work. They really don't want to work. And they certainly don't want to get in there with a bill that gives power to the executive branch inordinately. And then they don't want to argue about it because the bill may never get past the committees, much less the full houses of Congress, both the Senate and the House. And again, my point on all this is that was the idea. I can't remember the exact quote from Jefferson, but Thomas Jefferson said, whenever the legislature is in session, the liberties of the people are in peril. Something like that. I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but it was something like that. And so the Congress has to debate these things and fight back and forth and vote on these issues, right? Well, they didn't want to do that. They don't want to take the time. They want to create, let's just say the EPA, for example. I'd say the the ATF, but let's just say the EPA. Okay, they put together the EPA, and it's under the executive branch, and they say, okay, EPA, you write all the law regulations which have the force of law in the end. But Congress isn't doing it. They've abrogated their responsibility because they didn't want to do that. They want to be able to pass laws quick. They want things out there so that they can make their money off these little agendas they've got on the side. For instance, what's going on over here in Europe right now, right? Same kind of thing. They want to get their kickbacks. So they told the regulatory agencies, it's all your game. We're hands off. And that's why we're in the trouble that we're in today, because Congress, the combined houses, Senate and House, have both abrogated their responsibilities, and they've basically are guilty of dereliction of duty. So we find ourselves in this situation where we have so many laws, quote unquote, in this country, and then even more regulations that not one single person in the whole country can understand it in its totality. And it opens the door for the very type of tyranny that we see happening in the ATF, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the IRS, Department of the Treasury, etc., etc. All of those things, every action that those regulatory agencies, first of all, the regulation should be over the federal government employees. That's really what it means. They will regulate federally, and the federal government was supposed to be small. So the regulation of the agency would be, they'll come up with, their internal and how they deal with things on the outside and that kind of stuff. Not start prohibiting items that you own and that make you a felon merely for having. Dang near ex post facto. It's so close, there's hardly a difference. If you don't know what an ex post facto law is, look it up. Basically, it's you did something many years ago and they make a law now, then they backtrack and convict you of it, even though at the time it was not a crime. That's basically what it is. And that's why I say this is very, very close. So the Congress has abrogated the responsibility to protect the people. That's what they're supposed to be, the representatives of the people. Well, the Senate was supposed to be basically representing the states before they changed that at the beginning of the last century. The Senate was actually, the senators were placed into their positions as representatives of the state by the state legislatures, right? And then they changed that because in the popular vote they can manipulate things to make people think that they have a voice. And of course, representatives, Congress, the people that are in Congress itself, House of Representatives, they're voted by the people and then put in there. So they represent the people. So the House, even more than the Senate, has a responsibility to protect our interests. Of course, they're not. They're going after, getting the money from the big box stores, stuff like that. That's what they're really about. Going along with funding the war in Ukraine because they get that money back and they get patted on the back by the military-industrial complex, military-industrial congressional intelligence complex, probably is the way President Eisenhower would talk about it today. So at any rate, my basic point here is that Congress has handed over its responsibilities to somebody else, and those somebody else's are out of control and becoming tyrants outside of the intent of the Constitution. And even possibly, I don't know if I can even give them this benefit of the doubt, but outside the intent of Congress. So what Congress needs to do is, basically at this point, the big thing that would solve all of it, of course it's not going to happen, and it's going to, if they tried to do it, which they won't, but if they tried to, there would be a hue and cry everywhere, especially in the three-letter agencies, right? But what should happen is Congress should rescind this act that they put into place to abrogate their responsibilities to the regulatory agencies, because they never used the 30-day deal anyway. They just let it go and run slipshod over all of us, crushing us under its weight. So the House of Representatives has a lot of responsibility that they've thrown away. They are not serving the people, they're serving their own interests, and we all know that. But if you listen to Judge Napolitano, he'll explain that a little bit more in a little bit more detail than I've done here. I just wanted to give you kind of an overview. All right. There are some things that are happening in the House of Representatives right now. They are considering, I think there is a House resolution. I forget the number right now, but there is a House resolution to force the ATF to back off the pistol brace ban. Um, I consider it to be a day late and a dollar short, but if they do that, that'll be a step in the right direction. And of course, the bump stock thing, that's all same thing. All that. It's nonsense. The criminals need to be punished and controlled, and not the people. I put out a little poster some time ago, and I've done it on Twitter too. Here on YouTube, I did it when I was talking about the Second Amendment. It was a gentleman by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Cooper. He was in charge of guns. He was a big gun fan, taught weapons and all that throughout his life. And he opened up a place in Arizona called Gun Sight. A gun sight was a place where you could go and learn how to shoot, especially in tactical situations, self-defense. He used to train police departments, things like that. He died a few years ago, but he made a statement, and I don't have it ready here for you. But basically he said the criminal does not fear the courts or the police. The only thing he fears is his intended victim, who may be able to harm him in return for his lack of gentlemanliness. In other words, the police are never there. The courts aren't there. The only thing that can protect you is you. And if the government's trying to take that away, it's because they want to make you a slave, and they want you to be hurt by the criminal element, which also includes them. Because the Second Amendment isn't even just about criminals, right? Stopping criminals. It's to stop a tyrannical government, as most people understand these days. And then, of course, you're considered to be an insurrectionist by talking like that, but that's what it is. Even Judge Napolitano admits it, and others do too. I think Justice Alito did as well, and some others. Anyway, and of course, those types of decisions have been made for many years. I can't remember the Supreme Court justice's name who wrote the opinion, but he said the same thing. Hey, the Second Amendment's about keeping a tyrannical government at bay. And of course, protecting you against criminals, which in today's society are agents of the state to keep you in fear. So, as Colonel Cooper said, you need to force the situation where the criminal fears his intended victim. And how does he fear that intended victim? Because that intended victim can shoot back. That's the way you stop crime, not the way these crazy politicians sitting up there protected by myriads of agents with guns, and walls and fences and locks. I got off of root beer for a long time. And I had some, I don't know, it's been a couple of years back now. It just kind of reignited my passion for root beer. It's kind of one of those funny things. Okay, so that's kind of the overview on the Second Amendment thing. But as an addendum to that, the other part of this title is the states need to do their duty. We can't just leave it up to the Congress and to the Supreme Court. The states have to, if they don't have protections in place for the people, like guaranteeing that they are going to protect Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, etc., etc. If they don't have those in their Constitution or in their statutes, they need to put them there, and then they need to gang up. And I'm not naive, okay? I'm not saying that this will happen, but the real power to turn this government around is not in the office of the president. It's not even in Congress, although if it was working right, that would be the place. And it's not really in the Supreme Court. It's in the states, the individual states getting together. Now, right now, I understand that, Biden came out here the other day and he wants to do this thing where he wants to take money from people that have, let's say they're putting in a mortgage for a home. and they have a better ability to pay than a poor person. Well, Biden wants to take money from the people that have saved up and struggled and done everything they can to afford a home, and then take money from them out of their mortgage. And actually, he's not taking it from them. What he's doing is he's having them pay part of the mortgage of these people that supposedly can't afford it. So here we are back in the 2008 situation again, where they're going to give people homes that can't afford it. Now, I agree that people need to have a place to live. That's not my issue here. My issue here is the government's not the way to solve it. Prima facie. So right now, as it stands right now, I understand there are 27 states that are mounting a resistance to this thing on mortgages. Okay? They ought to do the same thing with Second Amendment attacks, First Amendment attacks. You see what I'm saying? The states have the power. If the damn Congress isn't going to do their job, especially the House of Representatives, and the Senate, of course, like I said previously, before 1906 or whenever it was, the Senate was, the senators were placed in by the state legislatures, so the states actually controlled the senators. They didn't get into this little club in D.C. where then to get them out, you got to rally the whole population of the state to get involved. No, the legislature could say, hey, you're not representing us the way you're supposed to. You're out of there. We're going to put somebody else in. They had to change that because they needed it to be more untouchable. A good example that I've used before is Orrin Hatch, the senator from Utah, who in 1974, I believe it was either 73 or 74, ran for Senate the first time. And I've said this before, his platform was term limits, that nobody should serve more than 2 terms in the Senate. And he was there for over 4 decades. If the state legislature was controlling it, they would have taken him out of there. At least they should have. Okay, so the states are the key. The House of Representatives should be the key. But when they've abrogated this, as the judge talks about in the description box below in that video, when they've abrogated and their responsibility and they're basically committing dereliction of duty and maybe even some criminal behavior, at least some unconstitutional illegal behavior, and give their powers over to these unregulated regulatory agencies, because that's what it is, they're unregulated themselves, then that endangers the people, as we've seen already. And don't forget, Trump in his conspiring way, not ignorance, I don't believe it was ignorance, in his conspiring way was responsible for the thing that set us up. Hi, BP Earth Watch, how you doing? 2 wings of the same bird called Babylon, yeah. He was the one that said after the shooting there in Las Vegas, oh yeah, let's ban bump stocks. Never mind that we're going to make criminals out of good people who had nothing to do with it. And now, of course, they're finding out, I think that was the other thing that happens. There was a Supreme Court decision, I think, already that said that or maybe it was a lower court decision, and it's going into the Supreme Court here soon, that the ATF regulation on bump stocks violated its own regulations and determined that this thing was making a weapon a machine gun when by their own definition it was not. So we'll see how that all turns out. But regardless, these 3-letter agencies are out of control. Congress abrogated their responsibilities, gave it to these agencies with no oversight. Oh, they have the hearings. You've seen how they do. They get up there and they have this dog and pony show like Jim Jordan up there, pointing out all the right things. Josh Hawley, all of them. They get up there and they make a big spectacle, but nothing ever happens. Even when the conservatives have both houses of Congress and the presidency, they still don't do it because it's a criminal cabal. They get in there and they make these promises to each other. Hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You are the last thing in the whole equation. So that's why we are where we are. So we'll watch and see what happens with these challenges to the ATF here in the last little while, and the state of Washington. And there have been some, I think, state of Illinois just got overturned, and their magazine and weapons ban there. I think they just got slapped down. So good things are still happening, but they're incremental. They come back at you all the time. They keep coming back. They keep coming back, right? All right, Lindsey Graham, I don't even want to talk about him. He's a 4-letter word as far as I'm concerned. Mike Pompeo, too. Okay. Just a really quick side note. I had a follower uh, contact me on Twitter who said, "Hey Roy, when you do your open forum, which will be both live stream and chat, I plan on, when you do your open forum, allowing us to ask questions about your book and about what you've gotten yourself into and how it happened and all of that. When you do that, would you give us a heads up a couple days ahead of time so that we can make sure that we're there for the live stream itself?" And I will do that probably 2 or 3 days in advance of my plan to do that interactive live stream. Uh, I'll let everybody know we're going to do it. I just haven't decided when yet. Okay, I want as many people as possible to order the book and read it. Like I said, they say I've heard some people say it's a page burner. I don't think so. Uh, and it doesn't really get into the nitty gritty of all of my decisions, but it shows you the results of what happened, including the breakup of my family, okay, and how that happened and why. A couple of things I can't really explain because it's not right, but definitely the exterior influences were more of a problem than anything else. Okay, just so you know. But I'll do that whenever we get ready to have that, or I get ready to have that live stream, interactive live stream. I'll give you a 2 or 3 day heads up, time and day. Okay, just so you know. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about today. I don't think so. I wanted to make this pretty quick, and it's already been coming up close to half an hour. I should probably do some chat here, but I can't see it real well. Roy, are they doing a movie on the Bundy Ranch? I don't know. I can't. I couldn't tell you that. I've heard rumblings that they are. They're constantly after Ammon. He's now in trouble because he's ignoring the court up in Idaho on this. It's a contempt of court thing, I guess, on when he went in to help that baby who was taken away from their family. But they never go after. I guess the hospital sued him for defamation or something like that. I don't know all the details, but I think that was it. And the court, however that worked out, agreed with the hospital, and so they came after Ammon for some settlement. And I guess he's not abiding by the rule. Can't say I blame him. God bless Roy. Yeah, actually, Lavoy Finicum. Yeah, I appreciate you putting his name Roy there. It was actually Lavoy, L-A-V, capital L-A, and capital V-O-Y, Lavoy Finicum. God bless him. Yes, he was a great guy. As was Randy Weaver, who passed away not too long ago. Some great patriots. Gordon Lightfoot just passed. Um, I have a very good friend in California, and he texted me to let me know that Gordon Lightfoot just passed away, and that he said, he wrote some of the greatest lyrics of all time, and I agree. If you could read my mind, that one really stands out. That stood out to my friend and to me as well, because a lot of us are romantics at heart. I know I am. I think I've proven that throughout my life. I definitely am a romantic kind of guy. How long till? It's doing that now, Mark Anthony. They're gearing up. Um, you know, one of the reasons why I'm not commenting a lot on what's going on in Europe right now is because there is so much disinformation, even from the people that aren't intentionally putting it out. There's so much disinformation. There's so much gaslighting. There's so much. I mean, they say that there are big battles happening, and I know they're not putting up all the videos, but I watch some of that. I don't like it. I don't want to, but I watch it. And I'll tell you what, it's not just lack of training. There's something else going on there that just doesn't make any sense. Okay? For instance, let me give you an example. There's some videos out there. I understand, maybe I'm going to say some things here that people don't know what I'm talking about, but I'll try to explain it. I understand putting observation posts out away from the main body of the troops, and listening posts, and forward observers for artillery. But you know what? You don't put those people out there without some type of support. I've seen, mostly the Ukraine stuff goes up, showing how great they are, and most of these have been showing Ukrainian troops doing clearing of trenches. People are going to jail now in the U.S. for talking about the Russian situation. Yeah, I know. There is no free speech anymore. That's why I say the states have to get involved here and start doing something about this. I mean, we're technically, Congress hasn't declared war. Maybe I ought to wear my Putin shirt that I had a few years ago where it says New World Order, niet. Anyway, Jess, you got me off topic there, but I know it's wrong. That's the only way we stop tyranny, is by being able to speak up and call them out for what they're doing, right? So I agree. So back with the trench clearing. So I see that, these Russians are in these trenches, and they're probably forward observation posts, forward observer posts, for artillery, listening posts, something like that. And then they're getting assaulted by Ukrainian patrols. Well, I'm sorry, but the way I was trained, there should already be targeting information out there so that if those listening posts, observation posts, whatever, come under any kind of attack or even maneuvers by an enemy, that artillery can be called in that quick. You have predetermined firing area, predetermined target areas, usually along the most likely avenues of approach. And they're out there without any of that support. There's something wrong. There is really something wrong with these things. The Russians aren't stupid, okay? Something else is going on here, and that's why I haven't been commenting as much on it. We have Colonel McGregor saying, there's 200, 300,000 Ukrainian casualties. Then we have, Kirby coming on, the spokesperson for the White House, the National Security Council, who comes out and says, oh, there have been 100,000, Russian casualties. No, I would trust Colonel McGregor before I would trust Kirby. But my point is, things are not adding up on either side of this equation. And some very bright people on here said it's all a scam. It's all a fake. Even Stu Peters says the war's fake. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying some things really don't add up. Okay? Again, you don't have a freaking observation post out there without fire support to protect it. You just don't do it. So that's why I haven't said much about it. I'm waiting to find out. Okay? We're just going to wait and see. This thing about, the offensive, the Russian offensives are going to be in, well, I thought it would be too if it was going to happen in the winter, but then the excuse was, well, it never got cold enough, the ground didn't freeze. Okay, fine. The Ukrainian offensive is going to happen, then and then, and all the Russians are going to do it, when it dries out. I don't know. All I'm saying is that, in my estimation, a lot of things aren't adding up. For the U.S. side and NATO side, man, it's great for the weapons industry. They are making bank right now, more so than Afghanistan, than Iraq, than even Vietnam. And for what? Like I said, clearing out that Ukraine of white Christians. That's what it looks like to me. All right. Yeah. Pardon me for doing this. Like I said, I don't like getting this close to the camera, but what about the S-300 missile system they found in Ohio? Again, there's there is so much. This is the age of deceit. Deceit's always been around, but now more than ever. That's why there are still things in the Bible that make a lot of sense to me, even though I don't think it's perfect like so many people think. Jesus said, he was asked, what's the first thing we need to be concerned about? He says, to see that you be not deceived. First words out of his mouth, according to the New Testament, right, on that issue. See that you be not deceived. And he refers it to people that will talk about Jesus even. Those who say that I am Christ. In other words, oh yeah, that's Jesus, all right. Yeah, the guy that died 2,000 years, he's it, and this is what you should believe about him. You know, or that they think they're Jesus. You know, I mean, it goes both ways. But the point is that that was true. This is the age of deceit. So we really can't believe anybody. We really have to do what I tell you to do. If I'm telling you anything and everything I do, it's to prep, pray, stay out of the way. How are you going to choose which side is the right side? How are you going to do that? In situational awareness on high. I don't know what else to tell you to do. Gather around with like-minded people. I had a friend the other day that he says, yeah, we need to start doing things. And I said, well, we probably have friends that are getting paid, people we think are friends, who are getting paid by the FBI, the InfraGard program, to keep track of us. We don't know who they are because they do real well. They think they're 007 for the government. So, that's what's happened to the Proud Boys and everybody else. Yeah, you have to keep your group small and close hold. You do. Unfortunately that's just the way it is right now. That's the way it is. Um, but we need more trans rights. Who said that? Andrew? That's all cultural Marxism. Frankfurt School. Dang, I saw a real good presentation on that today. It was either on Twitter or on YouTube on the difference between, what's happening right now. All these different things: the cultural Marxism, the attacks on the man-woman relationship, family, liberties, all of that, coming out of the Frankfurt School and Fabian socialism and all of that. Really bad stuff. Really bad stuff. So, and this, what you just mentioned there, on the, you're not sure what you are thing, or you're demanding you're something other than what you are, and then forcing kids to do it who can't even take an aspirin in school without. It's Baphomet and Moloch. And I'm not even saying they're actually physically or psychologically, emotionally worshiping a figure of Baphomet or Moloch, but they have the spirit of Baphomet and Moloch, and it's extant everywhere, and it keeps rising. We just saw the thing with Bud Light, right? And there are more. Miller was doing it. Jack Daniels was doing it. I saw a thing the other day. I don't involve myself with tobacco at all, but I think it was Shepard Ambellis who put up. I guess he went into a store and found a pack of Marlboro in the rainbow colors. Gee, we went from the Marlboro man to rainbow colors, I guess. And that's another thing, absconding the covenant of the rainbow and using it for that movement. That just shows you how evil this whole thing is. Taking God and mocking him. Even if you don't believe in God, there are things in the natural order that are right and wrong, right? Okay. Well, I didn't want to make this long. I just wanted to bring that up on the Second Amendment deal. Be able to bring out my Second Amendment cup. I kind of like that. You can see that there. You can see isn't that cool? I've had this now for what, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. I was going to bring up one thing closing on spirituality. Just one thing. Just one. I talked about Isaiah 3 and 4 the other day. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and look at it. And I just want to remind everybody that the promise that was made to women with the women's rights movement, the suffrage movement, all of this stuff, was about, when you break it all down to the bottom actual issues, it's about pride. And I don't just mean the pride movement today. I'm talking about being proud, okay, that kind of thing. Pride, which is, the pride comes before the fall, that idea. Pride and power. And they even admitted, I told you about a lady that I knew very well, who was she had been such a nice lady, and then these people got a hold of her, and she said, oh, the power of women, we want our power. We want money and fame, we want power. even though I've talked about the situation in the Garden of Eden being about a sexual problem, okay, not that sex is bad, but that there was basically an adultery that happened there. And if you want to know about that, go look at my religion series. I'm not harping on that. But the basic core of that also was what? You be with me, and you will be as God, knowing good and evil. You see the subtle thing about power? And this, according to the Genesis, this adversary, this evil one, knew better than to go to Adam for whatever reason. And I think I know what that reason is, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about why we keep seeing this thing with the women being subjected to this, wanting power and having pride in being a woman, right? Yeah, that's probably some truth. I think I would rather say I'm thankful. If I was a woman, I'd rather say I'm blessed and thankful to be a woman, not I'm proud to be a woman. I want the power. But that's what really happened in Genesis there. Not just eat that fruit, but you'll get power. Forget about your husband. Forget about your kids. You're going to have power. See the problem with that? Then you get the mixing up of the sexes, you know, not knowing whose role is whose, all that kind of baloney that just gets totally, look where we are today. I'm not saying everybody does it. There's some really good people out there who have held on to the natural order very well. I know some of them. But my point is that problem has gone throughout history, but particularly in this day where they're in, well, I don't want to get into that kind of stuff right now, where they're doing things to you, you know, to change you. I don't get into that. But they definitely start out with this thing with women have equal rights, suffrage, then the Equal Rights Amendment, which was now they just voted on again. I don't even know if it passed now. I was so disgusted I didn't go that far. But the whole women's lib movement, the abortion thing, all of that. For power, for being out there and being a man. Women don't want men. They want a woman. They want to be understood, pampered, taken care of. But I want that executive position as CEO because I'm a woman. Not because I'm able to do it, but because I'm a woman. I deserve it. See the problem? I love women. Most of you should know. I had somebody comment on my video on the other day when I talked about this situation with Isaiah 4. And I'm sure it was a woman who wrote down, "You abuse women." No. That's not what happened. That's not what happens. So anyway, they fought for all these rights and all this power and everything. And then the screw got turned. It got turned. And now men who think they're women can compete against a real biological woman. Where's it all gotten you, ladies? They set you up and they took you down because you believed a lie. Not all of you. I know some very good women that wouldn't fall for this nonsense. My wife Carol was one. You just don't find women like Carol anymore, that's for sure. I gotta show you another picture of her. I'll be right back. And I know I do this a lot, but I want people to know I think you'll like this one. This is in Venice on the way to the island of Murano. Okay. If there is a woman that met Proverbs requirements, and I've had a lot of experience, right? She did it. So I know it's possible. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you have a nice evening. I just wanted to bring this information out and let you know what's happening. I'm sure if you surf the net, don't go to the mainstream media. Go to some of the Second Amendment sites, that are on YouTube or whatever, and they'll tell you about these different things that are happening. Hopefully, the Supreme Court stands up for us. I'm waiting and seeing, but the states have to as well. The states have to start flexing their muscle, and unfortunately, even like in Utah, the government there has done a couple of good things I don't want to get into right now. I mentioned them before about this issue of changing kids, but and on the Second Amendment as well. But they need to get stronger, and they need to get together with other states and to form very strong coalitions. And people say, "No, we already settled that in the 1800s in the Civil War." Well, sometimes history repeats itself, doesn't it? I already said it, but keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way, keep your circle small, expand slowly. I hope you have lots of people you can trust. I'll be honest, I don't. Okay. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this story. I won't name any names. But I had a longtime friend, I thought. He called me up one day and wanted to meet me. I went to see him. And he tried to give me an illegal device. I said, "Here." I won't say much more about it. I haven't had contact with him since. My choice. You don't know. Keep your situational awareness up there. Keep your eyes and ears peeled. Keep your logic and reason in place. And there's a lot going on to destroy us psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually right now. All this confusion, all this mayhem and murder, all this deceit, all this commotion. I even find out occasionally I get pretty depressed about it. And that's what they want. So stay close to God, however you view him. And I don't mean the Molochs and the Baphomets, okay? I mean the supreme God, the good God. Be as close to that as you can. Spend some time out near trees, mountains, lakes, ocean, in the real world, not in the real social construct that we see in these abomination of nations. Y'all take care. We'll talk to you later.